No, we don't.
Part of the reason is because they need the extra day to like.
Product sum. Two numbers that give us a product of positive 6 but give us a sum of negative 3. What are the two numbers that multiply to give you positive 6 but add or subtract to give you negative 5? Why not negative 6 plus 1? Yeah, when you multiply, you get negative 6. That's why that combo doesn't work. What do we do after we factor? What's the next step in method 1?
Separate them and make them both zeros.
Split and solve. So x minus 3 might equal 0, or x minus 2 might equal 0. How do I get rid of minus 3? So x equals. How do I get rid of minus 2? Add it, so x equals 2. Well, which is it? Is it 3 or is it 2?
Both.
It's both. I'm going to do the exact same question with method 4. You're going to see it's going to take a lot more time. That's why we don't use it often. But really, it's for ones that we can't factor. I just want to prove we're going to get the same answer. What we need to know is the a, b, and c. And if you look at the general form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. A is the coefficient of x squared. B is the coefficient of x. C is the constant. And the trick with quad formula is one of the sides has to be 0. If it's not, you have to make it 0. Tasha?
Yeah, with the split and solve thing, was that when you taught me the factoring stuff, like, for, like, stuff like example 4, the challenge example and whatnot? We taught that last year?
No, we did split and solve when you did method number 1. So if you flip back to solving quadratic equations.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, then yes, method 1.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we ended up doing that yesterday. I hate it when you're not here.
I'm sorry. Sometimes I have to go away. I would have much rather been here with you.
I know you have to.
Okay. One side has to be 0. These are just the coefficients in order. Because I'm left-brained, I like to write my a, b, and c off to the side because I like them in a nice little list. You do not have to do that. That's completely up to you. But I like to just write them so I'm not wondering later, what was a, what was b? A is the coefficient of x squared. It's 1 because I don't see it, so I know there's an imaginary 1. B is the coefficient of x, negative 5. C is the constant or the number without an x, 6. Quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Again, I know at first it looks scary because there's a root, there's a plus or minus, there's all these variables. This is just direct substitution. I'm going to take out b, I'm going to put in negative 5. I'm going to take out a, I'm going to put in 1. I'm going to take out c and put in 6. So be careful here with this negative b. I'm keeping the negative that's in front of him, and I'm going to put in b, which is negative 5. And I'm going to clean up that negative in the next step, so don't let that bother you. So this negative was in the formula, b was negative 5. Then I've got our plus minus and our root. And I'm going to be careful to put my brackets here when I sub in because the negative's going to matter with this squared. I'm going to put bracket negative 5 squared, and I'll evaluate that in the next step. Then I'm keeping negative 4. Then I'm bracketing and putting 1 for A, and bracketing and putting 6 for C. Then I've got my big dividing line. I'm keeping the 2 on the bottom, and I'm bracketing my 1 for the A. I'm going to do a few simplifyings in the same step. I'm going to deal with this negative. I'm going to do my squared. I'm going to multiply 4 times 6 times 1, and I'm going to multiply the bottom all in one step, because those are just mental math questions. So in the front, negative 5. Then I've got that plus minus and that root. And under the root, I'm going to do negative 5 squared. So negative 5 times negative 5. And that's why the brackets are important. If you put negative 5 without brackets, you're going to think it's minus 25, and it's not. It's always going to be positive here. Then I'm going to multiply these three numbers together. So negative 4 times 1, negative 4, negative 4 times 6, negative 24. On the bottom, I just have 2 times 1. Thank you. Questions so far? The next step I'm going to do is simplify the radicand. So I'm going to take everything under that root and simplify it up. So I still have that 5 out front. I still have the plus or minus and the root sign. And I still have a 2 on the bottom. All I'm going to do in this step is just simplify that radicand. 25 minus 24. The next step, if this is a perfect square, I'm going to evaluate it. If it wasn't, I would leave it. So if this was 2, I would leave it as root 2. If it was 13, I would leave it as root 13. Can I evaluate the square root of 1?
Yeah.
Good. The other class said no. Then we had a little discussion. I'm going to keep that 5. I'm going to keep the plus minus. I'm going to keep the 2 on the bottom. All I'm doing is evaluating what's the square root of 1. 1. Again, if I couldn't evaluate it, if it wasn't a perfect square, I would just leave it. Now I'm going to split into the two answers. My first answer is 5 plus 1 divided by 2. And my second answer is 5 minus 1 divided by 2. So I just split that plus minus into the two answers. I'm going to do the numerator first, then I'll do the division. 5 plus 1 divided by 2. 5 minus 1 divided by 2. So what are my two final values of x? 2 and 3. Take a look at the factoring. Take a look at the exact same answers way down here. I would never use quad formula for this question. Look at the work I just had to do as opposed to 2 lines. I just wanted to pick one that was factorable just so you can see it gives us the exact same answer. How are you feeling so far? I know it's a lot at one time. Let's look at 12. Let's just try to factor, just for fun. How do we factor when there's an a value over here? Multiply by the back, so 2 times 1 is. So in your head, you're saying, okay, there's a product of 2. And then you look at the middle number. What's the sum we're trying to find? Negative 10. And then to yourself, you go, okay, the only factors are 1 and 2. And so I need to combine those to get 10. 1 plus 2. Nope. 1 minus 2. Nope. Minus 1 plus 2. Nope. Minus 1 minus 3. Is there anywhere to make 10 with the numbers 1 and 2? So this is something that is not factorable. We cannot do it with method number 1. It is impossible to do with method number 1. That means we now need to go to another method. I could go to method 3 and complete the square. I'm just going to choose not to. I'm going to choose to do quad formula. And it's completely up to you which one you pick if factoring doesn't work. You just need to understand that not factorable doesn't mean not solvable. There's answers to this. And if we go to the graph, which I'm not really supposed to show you till next unit, but remember we talked yesterday how it looks like this U? What it means when it's factorable is that these cross at exact numbers. So they might cross at 1 or 2 or 4. They're going to cross at whole numbers. If it's not factorable, they're crossing somewhere in between. So the answer might be 1.57, 2.79. That's why when we did complete the square, you know, we got those ones with a nasty root, and we left it as like 3 plus or minus 12. That's why. It just means it's crossing in between whole numbers. Okay, we need our ABC. If you can't factor and quad formula doesn't work, which we'll look at one later, that means it's not solvable. So that means it's up here somewhere. It's not crossing. But people think, oh, I can't factor, no solutions. That's not what it means. It just means it's not crossing evenly. Again, you don't have to list this out. I'm just left-brained. It's the way my brain works. I like to just get them out there and not think about them later. If you don't want to do that, do not do that. What is A? Y? Coefficient of x squared. What is B?
5.
Y? Y? Coefficient of x. What's C? Y? It's the constant. C, constant, kind of goes together. Are we good so far? Quad formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. I'm going to do this one in less steps than I did the last one, so if you don't like to show all your work, you're going to like this. If you're like, whoa, back it up, sister, you can do it like last example. What I'm going to do all at the same time is I'm going to take care of the negative b. So if I need to do that negative negative, I'll do it. I'm going to do b squared, so b times b. I'm going to do I'm going to do a times c, and I'm going to do 2 times a. If you're like, that is too much, then do it step by step. I'm just showing you where you can skip steps. So right away, I'm going to take care of negative 10. Negative 10. Positive 10. I did that in 2 steps last time. I'm just doing it in 1 now. Here in my head, I go negative 10 times negative 10. I always leave the minus 4. I don't know why. I just like to do a times c. If you want to do times 4 at the same time, you can do that. It's just not how my brain works. I grab a times c, so 2 times 1 is 2. And on the bottom, I multiply 2 times a, so 2 times 2 is 4. So if your brain could follow all that, do it in 1 step. If you're like, then do it in multi-steps. Then I get a little bit lazy here, and this is like a lot of writing. So to do the 4 times 2, I don't rewrite it. I just write it above. What's 4 times 2? 8. So I tend just to squish it in there because I'm lazy. Then in the next step, I do the simplifying of the radicand. So I'm going to leave the 10 out front. I'm going to leave the plus or minus. I'm going to leave my root, and I'm going to leave the 4.
92.
Well, that was quick, 92. Confirm 92? Can I simplify the root of 92? Okay, so let's break it down into the factors.
For sure what a 4. It's like a 4.
Okay, so 4 times something.
23.
4 times 23. If you didn't get that, you could do times 2 and then times 2 again. Are either of these prime? 4 is not prime. Any of these prime? So 23 is the prime, and then we break 4 into the 2 times 2. Okay, so this is just from last unit. This is why we did this last unit, by the way, was just for quad formula. So when I come over here, I'm still going to keep that 10. I'm going to keep the plus minus. I'm going to keep the 4 on the bottom. What am I going to do with root 92? And then if the 3 numbers, so not the radicand, but the whole numbers, if you can reduce them by something, we do. You have to be able to reduce all 3. So is there anything I can divide 10 and 2 and 4 by? Okay, so 10 divided by 2. Then I'm keeping that plus minus. 2 root 23 divided by 2. And 4 divided by 2? 2. That's it. That's my answer. What? How is that an answer?
Because they're still numbers.
Yeah, well, the first one would be 5 plus root 23 divided by 2, which I could estimate. I know that's around 5, so it's like 4.8 plus 5 is 9.8 divided by 2, around 4.5. I don't care about the decimal value. If I needed the decimal value, I had a calculator to find it. What's the second answer? 5 minus root 23 divided by 2. That's why it wasn't factorable, because these are nasty decimal values. That's why at the beginning we were like, can't factor. We're going to have Oh, the mic might have died. No, I might have had it muted.
No, mic's still on, you're good.
Good. That happens sometimes. $529.98 is the first offer.
Oh my gosh. I think I did something wrong.
Confirm, throw it out.
240.8.
240.8. Negative 41.7. We now have 3 different offers.
Can't be negative 'cause it's a radius.
Okay. So looking for some confirmation. Yeah, just the plus here. We'll ignore the negative for now. We have an O as a fourth offer.
Negative 12,202.
Seems a little big, a little bit. Negative 12,000 something something. We now have 5 different offers. Negative 37.6, offer number 6. Perhaps we will start over and I will read out what we're going to punch in. Let's clear our home screens. You may need to bracket, you may not, depending on your system. Bracket. Negative 14 pi
Oh, no, we got it.
I found an error.
plus
Wait, is this,
Are we using sig figs?
that's in science.
we haven't done any rounding yet, so I'm just reading out what you're typing in, so you should have an open bracket, negative 14 pi plus square root, open bracket, 14 pi, close bracket, squared, negative 4, open bracket,
Negative 4.
subtract 4, thank you, 4, open bracket, 2 pi, close bracket,
2 pi, close bracket.
open bracket, negative 250, close bracket. Now, if your calculator opened a root at the beginning of this radical, if you have old operating system, it would have put one here. You have to put one to close it. Then divide by, open bracket, 2, open bracket, 2 pi, close, close. 500,
Oh my god. I got negative 36.7.
negative 36.7. Oh, we still got 2 answers.
I'm still at error.
Hey, did you pick go to? So pick go to and it will flash on what it's telling you the error is.
6.
Melanie? 3.7,
6.0.
6.09. So find someone that has a different answer and compare what you typed into your calculators. Find someone that has a different answer and compare what you have on your calculator.